that anyone would like to talk about? All right, we'll move on to the approval of the agenda. I'll move that.
Second.
Motion by Raddick, second by Ung. Any discussion on that? All right, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Anyone opposed? Passes 5-0. Moving on to the consent agenda. Items 4 through 7 constitute a consent agenda of routine action items to be considered by one motion. Items pass unanimously unless a separate vote is requested by a board member. Item 4, approval of the minutes of the May 21st, 2019 meeting. Number 5, approval of claims. Number 6, from Human Resources, approval of memorandum of personnel transactions. We are going to omit the second name on that list, who is not going to be a temp with us. So that is crossed off. And then, let's see, item 7 from the county auditor, receive the appointment of Dustin Johnson to the Hornick City Council. And that ends the consent agenda. I will move that. Motion by Raddick, second by DeWitt. Any other questions or discussion? All right, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? That passes 5-0. We still got done before the 4:35. You got to pick a spot between there. Well, I just knock out the Wolf Creek minutes there. I don't think we can do Mark's other stuff in 2 minutes, can we? Okay. So move on to 11A, award quotes for 2 new motor graders for the Secondary Roads Department.
Yeah, we recommend award of the trade on number 513 to Ziegler Caterpillar. It was, I don't remember the exact dollar amount, it's in your backup. But that was the low bid on 513. And then the low bid on 413 was John Deere 772H. I recommend award of 1 to each dealer.
So I will move the engineer recommendations.
Second.
Motion by Raddick, second by Ung. Any further discussion? All right, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? All right, passes 5-0.
Should put you within a minute, I guess.
Yeah, that's pretty good.
The budget amendment is the same numbers you're dealing with for Dennis. We're required to update the DOT budget as well as the county budget. So.
Okay. Do we want to just approve that then? And I'll move that. That's 11B, consider approval of Iowa DOT budget amendment.
Second.
Motion by Raddick, second by Potabom. Any other questions for the engineer? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? That passes 5-0. Thank you, Mark. And we are going to move on to our item 8, 4:35 set time. It's the public hearing and sale of property parcel. Lots of parcels here, 6, 12, 20, and 28, and 40 Colon Street, and 08 up there. I didn't see it. So we are now in a public hearing. Anything to be said for or against the sale of the property?
Hearing none, Mr. Chair, I move that the public hearing be closed.
I will second that. Motion by Taylor, second by Raddick. Any discussion on that? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Anyone opposed? That passes 5-0. We are now taking and accepting bids for this property.
Troy Cook, 3241 Viking Drive.
And what would you like to bid there?
The minimum bids.
Which was what, 750 was it? So we got 750 there. Anyone else to bid?
Hearing no one else, Mr. Chair, I move that the property be sold to Mr. Cook for $750.
Thank you.
Second.
All right. Motion by Taylor, second by Potabom. Any further discussion? All right. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Anyone opposed? Passes 5-0. Just get with Heather over there, and she will get you squared away. Moving on to, we're not quite to 440 yet either. So 11, we finished up. We're going to move on to item 12, recess Board of Supervisors meeting, convene Wolf Creek Drainage District Trustees meeting, approval of the minutes of the May 21st, 2019 meeting. I will move that.
Second.
All right, motion by Raddick, second by Taylor. Any further discussion on that? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? All right, passes 5-0. And we will adjourn the Wolf Creek Drainage Trustees meeting, continue the Board of Supervisors meeting. Maybe it's best we ask about committee meetings now and bounce back to the. You want to go for it?
Sure. So we had a good Rolling Hills Mental Health MHDS meeting, and big takeaway was that, as you know, there are $322,000 dedicated to new core services. Siouxland Mental Health submitted a proposal for mobile crisis at about $227,000, which leaves us some room for other new core services. That was approved by the board, and my understanding is that with Sioux Rivers today, that may have been a topic of discussion, but that they will move forward housing that team that will accompany law enforcement out of the Crisis and Stabilization Center. So that's a very good thing, and that's really the main takeaway from that.
Any others you had? Or?
That's it.
We did kind of have a follow-up to that in our meeting. You can go ahead and take
Sure.
that, Matthew. I know you love it.
Chairman Raddick and I attended Sioux Rivers today, and the contract with between the two regions will be amended to allow the funding to more appropriately and per DHS recommendation go directly to the provider, in this case Siouxland Mental Health, with the crisis center, rather than going to Sioux Rivers and inflating their budget because there's the same coding used for essentially showing double the price of what's being paid for. So there was no conflict there. That'll be approved at the next governance board, the next and last Sioux Rivers governance board meeting. Anything else I missed from there?
We just kind of discussed the issues going forward. Typically, you know, you approve the financials, and since Sioux Rivers as a board is going to continue to go on, I think they'll just continue approving financials, even though not everything is going to be spent till probably like August or September from the previous budget. So. All right, so that moves us on to item 9, secondary roads. Mark Nara, public hearing to request to reclassify a portion of a level C road.
The board has a number of roads that are designated level C service, which is a minimum maintenance, minimum access designation for certain roads deemed within that system. They're placed in that system by petition of adjacent landowners. There is a provision that one or more landowners can petition to remove their road from level C designation, and we have received that from Brenton Fuchtenberger of Habitat Restoration Services. His intention is to go through subdivision procedures and build a house back on that 130th Street, the designated level C road. Just looking at it on aerials right now, it's going to take somewhere around 400 feet back down the road to be able to site a new driveway for a residential application. I'd like some flexibility on where that actual final position is if the board aims to allow this change in resolution. We scheduled a public hearing for today at 4:40 to hear both for and against that change. Our ordinance doesn't define this really well, what happens when we reclassify, so we just kind of based the way we're doing this on a road vacation, putting it out for public hearing. publishing in advance. I sent letters to all of the adjacent landowners who were involved in the parcels going into level C in the first place. So for that, unless the board has other questions, I would suggest you open the public hearing and see what there is to be heard.
So we are in the public hearing. Any? Yeah, come on up if you have something to say.
Alrighty, so,
Start with name and everything. Like.
yep, Brinson Feitenberger, one of the owners of Habitat Restoration Services LLC. Anything else you want me to say before I explain it a little bit?
Is that?
Anything else besides my name and?
Do they have to say address, or what do they have to say?
You can just say your address.
Okay. Yep, 1695 170th Street, Sioux City, Iowa, 50106. Yes, so we bought this property probably 3.5 years ago, I want to say. And we always wanted to potentially build somewhere close to Buchanan Avenue. Didn't realize that it would be a little bit difficult going right on to Buchanan. And so I've kind of been backgrounding this for a while with Mark and then also Dan Priestley. And the best way that it seems to go about this would be if we could reclassify up to maybe 400, 450 feet. Like Mark said, it's tough to know exactly without being out there, but we measured it on an aerial. But to be able to get the best place from a safety standpoint, obviously, and then also just from a logistical standpoint from getting dirt work equipment. So I've met with a contractor and kind of know the rough bid to get a driveway in, and spoke with all the landowners because I know in the past one or two landowners had some issues with reclassification, and based on it only being 400 feet or less, they were very open to it. And so if it would be the entire road, they were not going to be on board, but just for 350 to 400 feet of it, they weren't against it. The one neighbor's concern is just always supervision. And so with us potentially living there, or that would be the purpose of doing that, we would obviously be able to supervise even more our ground next to his. So he was okay with it. So
What is the address of where this is at, so I can kind of look at it on satellite too?
It would be right off Buchanan Avenue on 130th Street. That's the extension of 28th Street, where the exit is off of Highway 75 bypass. That'd be the easiest way to tell you where it's at.
It doesn't have an address yet until it's assigned one.
There is no address because there's nothing assigned. And as Brent mentioned, it's almost a 15-foot elevation difference between Buchanan Avenue and the east-facing portion of his property that borders Buchanan, and it's going uphill from there. So cutting a driveway that would get us down to Buchanan with the narrow frontage that he has just isn't feasible, and any access would have to be gained as it is now from the level C portion. As a farm property, there is a driveway that's roughly halfway across the southern line of that property that provides access now, but that's not where we're looking at this time.
correct.
We require 500 feet of sight distance in each direction of the driveway. We shift that a little bit when you're at an intersection. Obviously, if you're not within 500 feet of the intersection, it's going to be shorter. But sight distance to the east isn't the problem. It's how well we can get sight distance to the west. So there needs to be some give and take on where this ends up.
So you said Buchanan and 130th?
Yes.
Okay.
I'm going to bring this up.
Well, they've got that.
Oh, they do. Okay, perfect.
What's that in the?
His letter.
Kind of shows.
Oh, yeah, that parcel, yep.
But he's bringing up
Okay.
a larger map.
Sure.
So the 130th Street is the level C road, and you're looking at like the first 400 feet?
400 to 500 feet. So it'll be around where that bend is. Beyond that triangular parcel, there's a driveway to go, as shown on the letter petition.
So this parcel is just north of 130th.
Actually, the parcel is north and south of 130 according to county plat maps.
Okay.
One of the property owners out there disputes that, but he suggests that that's part of their property, not part of this property. That's not what the tax records show.
That's not what the map shows either.
But yeah,
Getting in the middle of that.
yeah.
Is that somebody I've had a lot of conversations with?
Yes, it is.
Okay, that makes sense.
And that's the way it's fenced, but
What do you mean that's the way it's been?
the fence for the southern property owner's property extends around that triangular parcel.
So it fits his description of who owns that property?
It fits the southern property owner's description, not the taxpaying.
Yeah, it does not fit the legal description of it.
Correct. And we all know who that is.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
What are you going to build there?
Just a home.
Just a single-family dwelling?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, it'd be nice to be able to build like, two homes versus one if we could potentially, but honestly, I mean, it'd be just for sure one. I bought it because my wife is from Wisconsin, and it's hard to get the feeling of Wisconsin and Minnesota around here.
I'm sorry, we have a 4:45 set time.
Oh, okay.
Continue this session.
Okay. Thank you.
It's yours.
All right. So we will interrupt this public hearing for a public hearing. Approval on amendment number 1 to Woodbury County FY19 budget.
We're going to open the public hearing. What this is, our annual budget amendment. Sometimes you do 2, 3. This year we're doing 1. You can see the breakdown of where this amendment is going on the 2 sheets there, these 2 sheets. And you can see the bulk of it is going to secondary roads of the $2.569 million. $2.429 million is dedicated to secondary roads, which was approved. Those numbers were approved in the budget amendment to DOT. The sheriff has, if you want, I can go through these individually, or you can look at them. If there's any question on individual ones, I can answer them. We have some in the general basic fund. We have some in the general sub, secondary roads, and emergency paramedic services. Most of these we have talked about all beforehand.
And again, most of ours is in the construction budget. It's projects that carry over from one fiscal year to the next. When we let a project in January, we don't know if it'll be constructed by June 30. Frequently, they're not. And in this case, one of the largest projects involved with the carryover is that 250th Street grading that we now finally have right-of-way on. So that's the last of one of our special project levy projects, one of the last 2. So again, that's why ours was so large, is because we carried over quite a bit more than was anticipated in this fiscal year. We also added in some more money to help us with the FEMA fight with some of the accumulated balance. Our budget balance doesn't go back into the general or rural services fund. It stays within the secondary road fund, since 80% of it almost is generated from other sources.
All right. Well, anyone to be heard on the public hearing? So we got to close that and then vote on the approval. All right. So I will move to close the public hearing.
Second.
Motion by Raddick, second by DeWitt. Any discussion on that? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Anyone opposed? That passes 5-0. I'll move the approval of the amendment.
Second.
Motion by Raddick, second by DeWitt. Anyone else with a question on that or any further discussion? All right, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Passes 5-0.
Thank you.
All right, we can go back now to the level C road discussion. Sorry about that. I guess my question would be for Mark on the maintenance of that 400 some feet or 500 feet, whatever it ends up. What are you looking at?
we'll need to do a survey. It's more than just maintenance. This comes under our level, well, it comes under our road upgrade policy. When a road is upgraded that doesn't meet county standards for a building or residence, we have a policy in there where the resident can make a request to the board to upgrade it. As part of that, they pay 100% of that upgrade cost. So we'll be looking at grading and graveling that road back just past the driveway far enough for us to get a turnaround for a motor grader, since we'll be maintaining a dead-end road. Right now, we're figuring about 10 to 15,000. I think it's a figure I mentioned to him initially when we talked about this. That's probably on the high end, but we haven't had a chance to do a survey yet. As you know, it's been very wet this spring.
Sure.
And you're fully apprised of that?
Of the cost, yeah, I took notes in our meeting. I remember I think they said the biggest cost would be the gravel.
The gravel actually is more expensive than the
So
grading.
how do you do that, Mark? Do you do an up to or not to exceed and then an actual?
I don't give him a not to exceed. It's whatever the cost is.
Yeah.
I mean, we're not doing we don't make much out of a house going back on a dead-end road. We don't make much on a house, period.
So then you just bill at the end what your actuals
Yeah.
are?
We'll make sure that we're within a reasonable amount. Again, the biggest expense is the gravel.
Yeah, we did the calculation in the office. I don't think it was 15, but I have it written down in the notes. He calculated it out right in that. This is like a month ago, but yeah, he did the calculations.
It's a couple months ago, and that's assuming, again, just a little over 400 feet. So.
And as long as they don't fly any Wisconsin Badger flags at this house, I think I'm okay with it. So.
You look confused, that's a good.
I don't get into the Big Ten tumbles, so Big 12 all the way. So
No, I'm an Iowa fan when it comes to the schools, so I don't know if that ruins your vote or not.
No, definitely approve.
If it does, then I guess it does.
I don't want to stand in the way of you improving your property. I think that's a great deal.
We'll get it done as reasonably priced as we can. We typically bring the road to a 26-foot top. We'll work within the existing right-of-way. There shouldn't be additional right-of-way needed. This is a job that our crew will do. We're equipped and can do so.
Is that gonna take away from all the other maintenance that needs to be done out there?
No, it'll have to be mixed in with the rest of it. We're going to have all of our equipment up in that territory anyway, because we have a number of roads to rebuild for this spring's frost. We've got Dallas Avenue, we've got Carroll Avenue. This would just be worked into it. He's got other hurdles that he has to get across. He has to go through subdivision and other requirements. This is just the first. If the board permits this, it allows him to pursue the other ones. So this is knocking down the first pin in the process that he has to take out to be able to build out there. His next steps go through dam with the subdivision work.
Yep. This was, I was told, is the toughest though, because of people's concerns with the road, and so this I knew was kind of like it's either probably going to happen and just be a process afterwards, or it's not going to.
I was surprised. It turns out only our department's the ones concerned about maintaining another dead-end road. The other landowners out there really didn't seem to matter much when they called and asked questions. I explained to them what was happening. It didn't seem to bother anybody. So
I talked to Scott, and he wanted to be clear on some things, but after that he was good on it. So
he's still not clear on that triangle, but worked that out later.
Yep. All right. Any other questions?
Should we close the hearing?
Yeah. Anyone else to ask or suggest? All right. I'll move to close the public hearing.
Second.
Motion by Raddick, second by Potabom. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Passes 5-0. I would move to reclassify. Is that that's under this too? Is that not?
Yes, it is.
Yep. Okay.
That's the second part of this.
Okay.
We have motion to deny or motion to approve.
Well, my motion is to approve. So
Second.
I think Potabom got that one first. So Raddick, motion by Raddick, second by Potabom. Any other discussion on that? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed?
Nay.
All right, so that passes 4-1. All right. And now, back to roads with gravel roads, item 13.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So this is a continuation of last week's discussion I thought was very good on gravel roads in Woodbury County. So in the last 2 years in particular, we've seen and heard more from rural residents and firsthand on our 150 miles of secondary roads, the majority of which are gravel, and the impact on farming, operations, quality of life, school, transportation, and emergency services. So last week, it seemed like we got to the discussion then of, it seems the consensus of the board is to do something to sizably move the ball downfield on this issue. Whether or not we use tax increment financing was an option, raising property taxes or some combination thereof, or doing nothing, I guess, which is would be the status quo. So after some discussion and talking to our budget analyst and our bonding attorney, I think that we should take another look at using a combination of tax increment financing as a resort to and an alternative to raising property taxes to finance this. I think you have a fourfold goal that's accomplished by doing so. You'll solve the problem in front of us in a way that takes action. I think you made a compelling argument last week on the amount of aggregate that can be bought and mitigate some of the rising costs in future purchasing. Second, you avoid the increase in the tax levy at all, which this board hasn't done in the last 5 years. Third, you avoid paying interest, and we looked at about $2.275 million over 10 years' time. And obviously using TIF, you don't have interest because it's money that hasn't hit those taxing bodies. And then finally, with the schedule, you can adhere to the taxpayer's first resolution, dedicating $1 out of $2. So it isn't my, and I made this known last week, it isn't my preference to use TIF, but of all the options that are laid out before us, in the position we're in, kind of between rock and a hard place, I think that this is the best solution. I did talk to our bonding attorney today, and you all have seen, I think, his legal opinion. He emphasized picking roads on farm-to-market commercial road systems that the board really believes has an economic development impact. I think we can do so and rely on our county engineer in a way that can utilize this. You'll also notice in the schedule that we do rely on reserves the first couple of years. That's because of the nature of TIF being on a stair-step increased schedule of abatement from CF. And so with that, we dip into our reserves a little bit, but again, the alternative would be the tax, which I'm just not really doing. So those are my opening remarks, and just thought we'd continue the discussion that's on for information. The chairman wanted to have a legal opinion to make sure that this was all copacetic with a bonding attorney.
Well, and this sounds like we would have to like TIF very large portions of the county.
Mm-hmm. Your alternative is either that or to identify the roads, in which you start threading.
And that's the way a lot of the counties who have wind farms have done it, where they TIF the road right-of-way as the urban renewal district. Then they're able to utilize the value of those wind farms to repair and improve the roads after they've been degraded over the course of construction of those same farms. This is something we've been talking to planning and zoning about, is getting some provisions in our county zoning ordinance to deal with wind farms when they finally do decide to locate on our side of the county line instead of on the neighboring counties as they've done in the past.
So what about doing a completely separate TIF district for this purpose, not using the CF TIF? Do you want to expand the CF?
The reason you don't want to do that, because gravel roads do not create themselves a value increase, because they're all tax exempt. So you have to tie the road back to a TIF district that it does generate. Now, it doesn't say down the road that these gravel roads, when they're reconstructed and better gravel on them, may not enhance more cattle developments, more hog lot developments, maybe even some commercial development. Who knows?
We've cited 5 new hog buildings this spring already, where we've got that investment going on out in the rural area. I know that's not popular with some.
Well, it doesn't
But it is-
necessarily increase the amount of
It
taxes
doesn't
paid.
increase our tax base, no. But it still does put an emphasis on jobs being created. I think Dan Peterson of Whiskey Creek Acres has been in here a number of times talking about the impact that his operation makes. I think Heyman's operation over by Anthem. I'm trying to think of the name of the folks that are down by Odo. But there's 4 to 5 cattle operations that I know of that they're employing between 10 and, in Whiskey Creek Acres case, 50 employees out in the area who are taking care of these. So there is definitely an economic impact with maintaining the health of these, because they do become job centers, albeit a different type than CF Industries or AGP. They're more labor than anything where we see that tax growth. But this is something that I think can be funded, as the attorney outlined today, and can arguably be for economic development when you look at growing jobs.
The thing with the way we're talking about, it is subject to reverse referendum. We've never had a reverse referendum in the history of Woodbury County, and I would not anticipate any reverse referendum on this, because it doesn't involve tax dollars. These are dollars being used before they hit. And with the increase in value in Sioux City alone on industrial and commercial residential, it's going to somewhat offset more than what we'd be gaining by not doing this.
Mr. Chair.
What we're talking about is reconstruction out there, because we're not just throwing surfacing stone on there. We're going out, getting these roads brought up to a 26 to 28 foot template again, restoring ditches, all of those things that our residents who are smart about roads would also say that we need to be doing out there. That's all part of this project. It's also one of the reasons we're talking about 5 years to get all of this done. My early guesstimate was about 800 miles. I know Marty keeps going 3 but looking at 800 miles and what we can get done, that's 40 miles per district, and that's a pretty ambitious program. And we don't haul this out in one lump either. We haul it out the first year, and then we follow up again the second year, so we have time to incorporate that material into the base, just as we did down at CF. And again, these are the roads I point to when you look at the success of actually getting enough gravel base built up on them, because those roads hung tough this spring. 225th, 235th, Allison, those roads were just simple gravel roads, and they endured all that CF traffic and continue to hold up well in the spring. You only have to look at Allison Road north of 225th to see what our normal gravel roads in that river bottom area look like, or go down to 290th, Carroll, 300th. Those streets are suffering again, as many of our roads are. But it shouldn't take us long to pinpoint both farm to market routes and then the roads where we have homes, businesses, growth. 185th is a business just east of Humboldt. We have a gentleman out there with a seed corn operation, runs a couple $1 million through that operation a year. There are plenty of those little facilities out there that do depend on this road system. We kind of rested on our laurels since we got Iowa out of the mud back in the 1920s, 30s, and 40s. It's time we start rebuilding.
Now, I kind of have a concern, well, a few of them here. Okay, bonding on it. Is it a product that lasts as long as the bond?
Well, if you look at the benchmark we have is 30 to 35 years ago, we had a 6 to 8 inch road base out there. Now we're down to 2 to 3. So in that intervening 30, 35 years, we've lost between 3 and 5 inches of road base out there. Work that ahead. You know, we're putting that out there, and then we're going to do our best to try to make sure in the future, and we should do that with our minimum growth as these same dollars come out of TIF. With that minimum levy, we should be able to buy more gravel in the future. We aren't going to need more staff. We should be able to start to put that money toward making better roads. I've said it many times since the CF project came along, we're going to struggle while it's being built and in those years of the abatement. But our successors are going to have some money where they can really invest and put it into building a better Woodbury County road system.
Well, I think one of the biggest factors, of course, is getting the drainage away from the road, cleaning out those ditches and restoring that. Where was I going with that? I still just kind of have some questions about using TIF for it. And then say like we do this process and then 5 years down the road, go back to maintaining them the way that was done before. Do they get back down to where they're degraded again? And how much time?
In 30 years, hopefully not. And that's one of the things we're going to try to work toward. One of the other figures that I think the board has looked at is over the next 16, 17 years, we've identified $6.7 million that will be just growth as CF comes online in that minimum levy. If we look at dedicating that money to all gravel, as Supervisor Taylor put in that resolution, when we get out there in year 15, we'll be more than doubling the amount we spend on gravel each year, as that gets up to about 1.5 million if memory serves, where we're spending 1.1 to 1.2 million a year now. So, you know, we'll see that money coming into where we hopefully will be able to purchase enough to get back toward putting that 300 tons per mile into the gravel system like we did 30 to 35 years ago. You know, I'm sure that future boards and a future county engineer all will have that as a goal that's right in front of them. Again, our road system isn't growing in size, so they're not going to need more staff to maintain it. They will need to keep up with inflation, you know, salaries, gravel, bridges, all of that will become more expensive. But very few counties can forecast that kind of growth in revenue over a 20-year period. And as that does come on board, again, I see the board and subsequent county engineers sinking that investment into building a better road system and maintaining a good system in place.
What again was our mileage of gravel road?
Our mileage, exact 936 point something like that.
You've been lying to me.
That's
Told me 930.
Don't say exact and
That's
then
our
not be sure.
inventory gravel mileage. Well, I just looked at it before we came in.
But it's going to grow by 500
Just added
feet.
0.1.
It's going to grow by
It's gonna grow
500
by
feet.
500 feet, yes. We're changing a couple of miles of dirt there. But that is the DOT inventory gravel road mileage.
Go ahead.
My question is to touch back on useful life. The attorney's email we're all referencing mentions restrictions regarding the proceeds in the case that the useful life is less than the repayment period. In the 4 days since this email was sent to the board office and Dennis, it says that you can follow up for a more detailed discussion on that, and I'm just wondering, have you done that, Dennis?
I did talk to Mark about it, and when they talk about finished grade gravel, there's a difference between what he's doing and what this is.
I mean, we're rebuilding base out there where we're looking at getting between that 5 to 7 inches. We based our estimate, the $12.5 million in material, based on getting 7 inches per mile for that whole 936.8 miles. Base is more than just gravel surfacing. Our average gravel road, I think, is about 85 vehicles per day, if I remember right, from what the average count is. So just from Degradation from traffic, you're looking at losing 85 tons a year. Over 20 years, that puts you out at about 2,000 tons. We're looking at putting almost 3,500 tons per year.
So just to the question, it's
We're
our
putting-
determination
we're
there's
putting more
no,
depth out there.
it's
That would be
not
my position.
finished grade gravel?
Correct.
Okay, that's all I
We're
needed.
putting down more than finished grade.
That's it.
That was a long explanation to say, we're putting down a lot more than finished grade gravel. Basically, what this will be funding is the material portion of reconstruction, improvement, and repair of roads. So there's work going on that's being done out of our other budget as well, but this is what is funding the needed material.
Do we as a county have any other tax resources that we could tap as like, we can't levy a, what do you call it, like a gas tax or anything like that? I mean, we're
No.
solely property tax.
You're
in this
getting
regard.
local option sales tax, and you've been using that as a substitution for your minimum property tax levy. And with the current legislation, you're not going to be able to budge that more than 2 to 3% per year, depending on a supermajority of the board. So you're not going to move the ball very far in the only way you could go prior to this year's legislation. We moved the ball for that 5-year program where we levied an extra 1.3 million.
For the bridges, yeah.
We were able to do that special project levy because we were substituting local option sales tax dollars for property tax dollars. The legislation, if the governor signs it this year, is taking away that option from you. I know of nowhere else that we can go after money with any way of the board
So you could,
being able to reach out and touch it.
debt levy, you could do a special levy increase or whatever for roads, can you not? I mean,
You can, it's not subject to any election or reverse referendum, but that's tax dollars,
sure.
and you don't want to do that.
Well,
You know,
they're all,
we can't-
they're all
we can't
tax
go-
dollars,
At least a couple
reality.
board members have
I mean-
suggested they didn't, so.
Yeah, and we can't go.
We're doing it now, just not to the degree that we should.
Right.
But I think the difference is,
Yeah.
I think the difference is it's revenue that is coming in from not hitting the tax rolls right now versus going to taxpayers and say, we're going to increase that which you have today on your property taxes. So that's why I think it's more attractive, you know, though I
Sure.
admit that it's not the.
I mean, you're still using tax revenue one way or another, you know, it's just tax me now or tax me later kind of deal.
Right, but it's tax revenue that's coming into the county that no one's been levied for yet.
Right.
So, I mean, capturing that and
Right.
Versus saying, we'll increase your, because you can do this through a debt service, repayable through TIF.
Yes.
And that spreads it equally on per county resident, so it doesn't just become the unincorporated folks who get hit.
And with the plan, you aren't levying taxes, but it'll be what they call abated tax. Yes, when we do budgets, we'll set it up
Right,
as
you
a
abate
tax,
it.
but it'll all be abated through all these different sources of revenue, so there will be no tax. And as you go along, I did include another sheet that, as we use that 50-50 split, the third page I had here, which is this page right here, shows that during year 4 of this plan, that you will actually be getting more than 50-50. So there's going to be unused TIF revenues, and it keeps building dramatically over the years because 2 of our obligations fall off in 3 and 4 years. So it just leaves more money available through the 50-50 plan. And then when you get to fiscal year 24, you have more money to release unless you have other projects come up for, development. So you're still abiding by the 50-50. And if we don't have any plans after 24, it really could go to 60% tax relief and 40%. It'll vary because you're going to have all this extra money here to use. But hopefully find some economic projects to develop more tax base out in the road.
Or get paid back for what,
It's
dogwood?
the schedule, it's up there right now. You can see fiscal year 24, we have 511,000 extra TIF revenue that won't be needed. That can be either released or used for other projects.
And if dogwood would keep would progress and start paying us back, well, that would be more money.
You'd have 800,000 right there.
Yeah.
Right now, we have to make our obligations, but we did give them 20 years to pay that back.
But hopefully something will develop before then.
Yes, and I think, Dave, he left, but they have little projects starting to develop down there, but we need a lot of little projects to make up what they need to give us back.
If I could, Mr. Chair. And again, as I said last week, I just want to get something done. We've talked about this long enough. I want to do it. I asked Dennis to put something together that would cost us no new taxes. The one plan, as I've been talking to him while you were calling him, so, and one of them would have still taxed us a little bit for the first 2 years. I see he took care of that by just transferring it from our reserves instead. To me, that's the same as tax relief. Instead of taxing them, we're going to do it this way. So, I mean, it's, 6 one, half dozen of the other, but this way there's no new levy taxes coming in, which was the goal all along. I said, let's see if we can do this without having to raise our levies anywhere. And
besides the new CF revenues, I did add a column additional TIF, 50%. You'd see how that number eventually goes away. That's because they're going to be releasing it unless we use it. But there are other areas within, just besides CF, there's generating taxes. So I had the CF alone, then I put the TIF estimated from assessments I already know about from the assessor, rolled them back, and came up with that number there. It pumps in an extra 204,000, 2 years, and 120. So as these other obligations fall off, we're going to gradually get more and more TIF revenue that will be able to be released above and beyond the 50/50 or other projects.
So if we have something on the agenda next week or 2 weeks from now, money to get gravel on the roads comes in when? July of next year?
It will start. It's going to take a process. First, you got to give him consensus, let him go ahead, prioritize, classify the roads, what needs to be done, come back with a map, show you what needs to be done, what roads don't need to be done. We may have to use some of those roads that don't need to be done so we don't spot TIF. We tie it together, but he identify those roads. And then if you approve those, we move on to the amending the TIF area, which takes about a month and a half. And then from there, we go out and bid it out to borrow the money. And we estimate 3%. Before we had 3.5%. Talking with the bank, they're down to 3%, maybe even less, because they're guaranteed bonds.
And we'd be looking at later this year yet.
Oh yeah, it'd be during fiscal year 19, or as soon as he can get the help to, adjust his schedule and find out how we're going to haul it through his budget.
I've got a couple of equipment dealers working on number one, trailers, possibility of leasing, and then single semi-tractors so that we can gear up and get some additional equipment to do the work.
Let's say there's a lot of places that rent those trailers.
We'll want to take that ownership cost and compare it to the cost of hiring it done. So.
But this would get something moving this year yet.
Oh, this would be a major thing. And then like he says, if you can get a company come in, he's talked to a couple, I think, where they come in and do this all in one shot, you might get $1 off per ton. You talk $1 off per ton on $2 million, you could buy more gravel to keep, make a bigger pile and just have more gravel spread out.
I mean, we'd be looking at taking care of our maintenance needs in that case, in addition to taking care of the project.
Repair and maintenance.
Yep.
Have it all in.
Well, it does sound more ideal. I just do want to be sure that we're doing it legally and correct, and as far as amending a TIF district.
Yes, and that,
we've
already kind of gone through with that.
And, I mean, this is a discussion to be held publicly and in this board chamber, so that's why we're doing it.
Yep.
Did you have something else to add there, Jeremy?
I was just going to say, I think your point's well taken, Mr. Chair. I think the easier thing would just say, let's put all the roads into the TIF, right? But I think if we had more prioritized designating commercial industrial interests, what's suffering due to poor infrastructure, what hasn't had economic development. So I think that would be a good next step.
Well, we were talking about a road today where we have it's down in the floodplain. It's less than 3/4 of a mile from the farmer's ditch. And there's a lot out there, a 2.4 acre parcel, where the individual has contacted planning and zoning to build. And this lot was under 4 feet of water this spring. So imagine what he's going to have to do to get his house 1 foot above flood stage. As we do our proposed roads, this one would not be included. We probably, we're even looking at activating our level B ordinance and putting some of these roads where we're signing them and warning people, this is minimum maintenance. And just as we have the level C system.
Or nobody lives on it.
Right, where nobody lives on it, there's not even a corn crib or a grain bin anywhere on this road. It's strictly a land access road at this time. And roads like this, and it's a 1 mile segment, and it connects into another dead end road at the north end. They're strictly land access roads at this time used twice a year, planting, harvest primarily. Roads like this would drop quickly off of a priority system. And that would be what this map that we bring to the board for consideration would do. There may be some of the roads where we'll have a stretch without a lot of traffic, maybe no home on it, but it is a link. And, we'll show you where those are too, where we have those needed links, even though they may not have the residents, the hog confinement, whatever.
And you'll keep them contiguous to the TIF district so that
Well, we'll make sure it's
we're all
included in
touched
the
in.
TIF district when we start out. And again, that's based on this year's snapshot of the roads. Who's to say that somebody won't try and build a confinement on one in 20 years, or even 5 years. But at that point in time, we'll look at the road upgrade for that road segment when the time comes. We'll try and encourage them to the roads we've already fixed.
Now, is there a potential that we go to increase that TIF district and then people don't sign off on it? I mean, wouldn't it require cities nearby to sign off on it as well?
I think if you hit the 2 mile limit, you'll have to have the city sign off, just like we did with CF here. And any ag property, they do have to sign off.
Okay.
But it'd be hard to imagine an ag property not signing off.
Well, I can't imagine anybody not wanting them in this.
you don't want your road fixed, you don't sign off, huh?
I would anticipate 100% participation. It doesn't cost them nothing. We're doing it all through this plan.
Now, would their property end up in the increment then? So,
Yes.
Oh.
No, just their property would,
road.
just the road and road right of way. Their property would not. To end up in there, we'd have to amend it to put them in.
I just, seems like that's taking advantage of it.
It's being done across the state. It's the only way they can get enough money to do their projects in this gravel because of secondary road levies. And now our hands are even more strapped somewhat.
Yeah, we're one of the, again, I think I discussed this before. Before we did that special bridge levy, we had the 17th lowest total property tax asking of any county in the state. Now think about that. That's putting us down with Adams, Appaloosa. That's putting us down Page, the poor counties in the state. And they're levying $3.03 in many cases, the maximum. And our 90 cents to $1 per thousand was putting us down in that end. And that's where we're going to be this year. We'll see after fiscal year 2019 annual reports are done. This is our first year without the special project levy in the last 5. We'll see where we rank in the state again. The board has for a long time saved property taxpayers a good deal of asking when it comes to the roads here in Woodbury County. And this would allow you to make improvements while still not hitting them any harder than you are.
But then the last unintended consequences, maybe those funds that were supposed to be set aside for economic development projects or building or purchasing, those things are not going to be available. Am I right?
But this schedule allows, and that's a good question. That's one of the things I don't want to compromise on either the ability to do that nor to adhere to tax relief. I think if looking at this schedule, to me it's a balanced approach where there is still money available. It's not like you're taking 100% of that. So I think that there is still, and especially as those drop off in future years, that just exponentially grows.
And if something like that came up, a land purchase or a project came up with something like that, we do have to amend our renewal program, or not the area, the program, how we spend it, and have a public hearing. So the public's going to well know what we're doing.
And the other thing is, when you do have that next CF growth opportunity, there's RISE, Immediate Opportunity Grant, 80/20 money, even 50/50 money for area development is out there. There's other sources we can go to help us out with those type of improvements that aren't applicable in these smaller areas. I apologize, but I have to run tonight. I'm teaching at 6 o'clock, so I'm already late getting out of here than I had planned. So, if you have questions, you can always call me.
I guess what the consensus is, allow him to go ahead and prioritize, classify the roads, and then meet in 4 weeks.
I thought he had that last week personally. I mean,
You didn't have
I've already started the work. It's just
right.
Not completed yet. Huh? He hasn't got it completed yet.
Okay. We didn't expect you to have it done in a week. We just wanted to know you had the,
Yeah.
Highlighted what roads are there too, besides just looking at the list of roads.
But that would definitely be a part of any referendum or tax income and finance district. We will provide you a complete listing of the roads.
But somewhere down the line, we have to pass something to say we're going to change the TIF district, we're going to get the maps.
right, well, we need
Because it's going to be a
this.
6 to 8 week process anyway.
You can't do it without all the information.
And that's what we're asking for him to come back
Absolutely.
to the board, yep, absolutely, yep.
I mean, this is the speed of government, you know, and local government's faster than probably any other level, so.
I agree with that.
Who knew that all the money past boards sunk into Envision 2050 would come down to almost all being overwritten? It's funny.
All right, so
Now,
any other things anybody wants to say on that gravel?
Just get her done.
Okay, we'll move on to Marty. Any reports on committee meetings?
Nope.
Rocky. I had quite a few Simcoe meetings, a lot of approvals of, you know, TIP and TAP and all the other acronyms. And then the RWIB, Workforce Development Board, a lot of discussion on the new region size, and then we had an election of officers. That's about it on those two.
I had one more quasi-committee meeting report. Forgot to mention last week that there's an issue where we get a lot of, or the board office and myself get some public questions on why the flag is flying at half-mast at the courthouse. It seems to do that quite a bit in some people's minds. I don't know if there's a holiday, who died, what's going on. Fair questions. And so there is now a widget on the county homepage on the right side that will tell you why the flag is lowered, because I believe we follow the state, the governor's schedule, I think is what I remember. That's what Kenny, I think, is directed to do. So I assume there's no heartburn over that.
I know up at Briarcliff, I get emails both from the governor and from the national telling you if there's something that they want it flown half-mast for. I would assume we do the same here.
So it's nice for the board office to just be able to say it's on the website.
It's really unusual when it flies for a long time, like National Police Week, it flew for 7 days. Because I had people saying, did you forget to put your flag back up? No, the week's not up yet.
The citizen concern round two.
Eric Nelson from Mobile. Thank you for the discussion that you're having on the road. On the roads, it's not easy to figure out what needs to be done, but the reason I keep coming back is that you haven't done anything more important for a long time. And I challenge you to look at it as economic development. And I'm just sitting here thinking about all the, you know, I've got a neighbor, the wife of a neighbor that drives by our road, and she's right in the middle, so she has 2 miles, full 2 miles of gravel, and they've been really rough, and she's not alone. There are a lot of folks, and they're not driving to Cherokee to work. The big majority of them are driving right inside the city limits of Sioux City to go to work every day. And since I've been here, I visited with a volunteer firefighter friend of mine who had some sleepless nights here a few weeks ago really worried about they could make it there with the first truck, but the pumper trucks would never keep up on some of these roads. Now, the good news is after this last rain, it seems like we finally kind of straightened out a little bit, which usually happens when we go through the spring weather, and so thankfully that's happened. But so hang in there, but we really need this. Haven't been on the school board at Woodbury Central for 12 years and lived in the county for almost 25. I've seen when we first moved here, there were people that really thought it was going to be neat to live out in the country. And then they found out how bad the roads were getting, and that stopped about 10 years ago. And that could turn it around. And I can't understate how important it would be to the rural electric in the county, because they're really battling to have enough volume. Woodbury County has a big footprint, large size, and they've got to string wire to a lot of customers, and it could really help them a lot. They don't have to pick up that many. It can really help them a lot. So the other one thing I want to implore you on is don't go shopping for bargain basement gravel. Spend a little bit more. I get to bring my wife up again. She brought me lunch in the field Sunday on Garner Avenue, just south of 140th Street. We were on the road having a little picnic, and she goes, "Wow, the gravel on this road's really nice. This road looks really nice." And I go, "Yeah, it does." And I was kind of crossed just for a second because it's not supposed to look that way, right? And I go, "Oh, I know why. I put the last 3 tandem loads on that stretch of road. It was a road that the county wanted to close, and my landlord made a deal with the county a number of years ago that he would gravel a center chunk of Garner when it needed it in order to allow that road to be kept open. And as a renter, he and I had agreed that I would put the last 3 tandem loads of gravel on, which came from Schmelling Construction and Marcus. I'm guessing it come from Hallett, but that road, it actually, if you drive that stretch of road, it makes a lot of noise in the wheel wells on your car or pickup from gravel flying. As soon as you turn on to 140th Street, it gets quiet. Okay, that's the difference between really good gravel and crap. And this is what is showing up on our roads. Have you heard about these? Have any of you heard about it? Okay, because you should. Because if the chain of command is working at all within the, because I know a lot of the motor grader operators are good guys, and I would be really disappointed if they weren't reporting it. But this isn't just on our stretch of road. There's a number of roads around the county. This is dangerous. This is right in the middle of the road since Wednesday. And I don't have time to go and pick them all up, but that's what happens when you get, you need to negotiate contracts. I know I'm not telling you something you don't know, but somebody needs to pay damages if we end up buying crap and pay good money for crap. It shouldn't just be, well, we'll refund your money. No, what are you going to do with the crap that's already on the road? So, because there's a big incentive. I mean, you're looking at the top of a pile, and somebody may know what's in the middle of it, and they're smiling all the way to the bank when they cut a $1 discount because they know there's a bunch of crap in the middle of it. So, and again, good luck. Thanks for taking this really seriously, and I think that you will see some unexpected benefits in the years to come from additional development out in rural areas that's been pretty well dissuaded from just with the state of the roads in the last 6-8 years.
Thank you. All right. Board concerns, Jeremy.
I'll be gone the next 3 meetings, National Guard duty in Romania, so won't be able to call.
All right, we're adjourned.
Have a safe journey. It's a long ways away.